Hello, thank you for clicking on this Precise FP tutorial video. The purpose of this video is going to be to go over applying conditional visibility to your form templates within Precise FP. I am going to navigate to templates and we'll specifically be working under form templates here within Precise FP. I am just going to grab a form from our form template library. There are a handful of templates that are pre-built with conditional visibility already in the template. So if you are looking for something where it does let the client or prospect filling out the form select what they do or don't have, and then make items appear based on those selections, I would recommend either this personal information review or also under our fact finders category here in the form library. The quick fact finder is going to be pre-built to have questions like, do you have children? And they're already set up to only make a group for children information appear if we answer yes, stays invisible if they answer no. Similarly, our dynamic financial fact finder in the form library is also pre-built with conditional visibility, although this one is not for the recipient to go in and select what they have. This one is actually you as the advisor or the Precise FP user can actually go into the engagement before sending it to the client, and you get to select which pages of that template that they see. So there's a lot of different practical applications for conditional visibility. And I like to start with just honestly kind of what I hear most often. So for this purpose, I'm going to install the Financial Fact Finder, which does not have any conditional visibility built into it by default. That being said, anything from that form library, we can install as many copies as we would like to, and then we can actually hop into the template editor by clicking on them here in My Templates, and we can click Customize. Now, we will not be doing this for PDF templates because remember, PDF templates are signature machines. They go to the recipient for signatures only. So conditional visibility, we're really only going to be able to establish on our form templates. Okay. So once we are in the form template editor, the first thing I would say is let's go find a place where we want to make something appear based on a selection. So quite simply, I've hopped into the family members page here. This is just a pre-built financial fact finder from our library. So right off the bat, it's got a group for children, it's got a group for other family members, and it's got a group for other information. Of course, we can highly edit what's pre-built into this template, but for the purposes of conditional visibility, I'm going to leave things as is. And we're really just going to set this up so that this page starts with a question of, do you have children? Yes or no, making this group only appear when we answer yes. So in order to do so, here's where we kind of think about what we're making appear and what our selection is. I will see very often offices will create a question within the very same group to ask, do you have children? Yes or no. The way that conditional visibility works is it can be applied to make a single field visible or element, as we refer to in Precise FP. You can make a group visible or not visible. And then you can apply that to pages as well. Me personally, I like to apply visibility to larger pieces rather than kind of having to go in and tell each and every single field how to respond to some sort of input from the client or prospect. So I actually wouldn't recommend this being the place where we say, hey, do you have children? Because then we're going to have to go first name, appear when they answer yes, middle initial appear when they answer yes. It's just a lot of extra work, honestly. So instead of putting that question right here on the children group, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to scroll to the bottom of the page editor and I'm going to add a new group to this page. Okay. We're just going to add a plain blank group. We can always just disable the group header. So if you can't think of a title, that works for this kind of selection, that's okay. We can just truly make it a group that just appears there and just has the selector with a question. So to show that as well, I'm just going to say, let's say this is the selection children. Wording doesn't really matter because I have it disabled. It's just if I want to work with this group at any other point, if I'm maybe selecting it from a dropdown, now I at least just know what it is. So I am going to go ahead. I'm going to create that group. I have the header disabled. I am going to leave the layout to fit tall elements as disabled because it's really just going to be one question in here. Nothing's going to be very large or very small. I'm going to leave the display add more button as disabled because the way that groups work, we don't want them to be able to say, yes, I have a child, add more, yes, I have a child. Rather, we want them to say, yes, I have a child, and then here is the group to enter your children information. That group itself is add more enabled. So you can list as many children as you have. But this group, for just our plain question, we're going to say disabled. And then we're talking about visibility, but our actual selector group, we're just going to leave as default visibility. So I'm going to go ahead and create that group here, and it is going to put it at the bottom of the page. So I can grab the group by this collection of dots here over on the left-hand side. I can click and drag and just send that group all the way to the top of the page. Hi, this is just the first thing I want someone to see when they navigate to this page. The next thing I am going to do is I am going to use some sort of selector element. So we can either double click in our empty group, or we can click in our little dotted line field here for a single element, and then we can click to add a new element. So let's go ahead and do that. Drop downs and multiple options are really your most common for kind of making a selection, especially when it has to do with conditional visibility. So I'm going to go ahead for this. We just have two options. I'm going to use a multiple option field. So my title here is going to be my question. Do you have children? We can add a description if we need to, really just kind of a note for the client or prospect. Your default value, I would recommend against. That is going to, if you want to have it default to yes, it will do so, but the form doesn't actually recognize your selections. So I would let the recipient of the form make their selections here just so the conditional visibility shows up for them appropriately. All right, so in my allowed values, this is just a yes or no question. So I'm just going to put a value of yes, and then I am going to put a value of no. Okay. Now I am pausing here because we're creating a multiple option field. You'll see this with drop downs as well. I have what we call an advanced editor. So my allowed values that I'm creating here on the left, these are the options that the client or prospect will see when they are making a selection. There is a hidden value when I click Advanced Editor. We can actually see that our options over here on the left have become labels. So remember, that's what the client or prospect sees. The actual value of the response is over here as yes or no. These values are usually going to differ from label, especially if you have an option that maybe it's a sentence with spaces. You're going to see spaces aren't included in these values. You can edit these values as well. So if at this point I wanted to say, actually, let's say yes equals 1, and let's say no equals 2, we can do that. And then we would just establish our conditional visibility with those values rather than these labels. Just for the sake of clarity, let's leave this as yes or no. And then what we will do here is we will say we do not want to allow multiple selections. We want our options to show horizontally, so show one option per row. We're going to leave that off. If we wanted them stacked, we could enable that. We can, again, hide the title of this field if we want to, but since the title is my question, I'm going to leave it as that title is still going to show on here. You can absolutely make fields mandatory so they can't proceed to the next page until they make a selection in this particular question, which is really nice. And then I would go ahead and not disable value updates. So I'm going to leave this as no. Disable value updates is really just going to be if something's in that field. So if somebody does say, yes, we have children, it won't let them change it to, no, we don't have children. So once there's an input in there, cannot be changed by the recipient. Okay. And then our visibility here, remember, this is just our question. Do you have children? Yes or no? Once again, we're going to leave this as default. I'm going to hit create on that. And now we have our lovely group up here at the top of the screen. However, if we do hop into preview, we are going to see the children group is going to appear regardless of what the answer is for that do you have children question. Just a heads up there, we just haven't established any conditional visibility as of yet. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to close out of my preview here. And then I have my question. Do you have children? Yes, no. I have my children group. So what I'm going to do is, remember, we're going to use the entire group in one fell swoop. So I'm going to come over here to edit the actual group itself, that group details option. And from here, I am going to configure the visibility. I am not going to use this visible on dropdown, although this is very, very handy. For example, with say that dynamic fact finder, there's actually a page that is only visible to the Precise FP user that's set to advisor preview only. And that's the page that you see when you go in as the advisor to say, you know, hey, I want John Smith to see this page, but I don't want him to have to fill out this page. Maybe let's, you know, only check off these boxes. And then those are the pages that John Smith sees. Right? So we'll leave visible on just as select. That visibility is going to be normal, but our visible only when options will be our conditional visibility. So when our question of do you have children? So I'm just going to search for that question here. Do you have children? I can locate it here. It will pull up the field that I've searched by, but then it will also show you this is the page and then the exact group that we are that we're kind of pulling into this conditional visibility setup. Right, so I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And then remember our two values are just yes and no. We can always double check those here under show allowed values. Remember the label is just visible to the client or prospect. Your value is what you will use for conditional visibility. So in this case, we only want our group for children to appear when that value equals yes. And you feel free to copy the value precisely from this value column if it does get, you know, a little bit more complex than just kind of yes or no. These are case sensitive. If there's not a space in your value, we want to make sure we don't have any spaces when we're putting our value in as the conditional visibility trigger. So I'm just going to paste the yes exactly as it is from this value column here. And then I am going to save my changes. Now, when I hover over this group, you'll probably notice we have a new icon. So this is telling us this group is conditionally visible only when a condition is valid. We can click group details again to see how we have that conditional visibility set up. But the best and quickest way to test it when we're building it out is to actually hop back into preview. We're going to navigate over to the family members page. And then we can see, for example, we only see a request for other family member data. We can also make that group conditionally visible, maybe on another question. But if we select do you have children, that group should appear in place of other family members, just since it's above it on the page. And if we do swap that to no, we don't see that group anymore. Okay. Now, very cool thing with mandatory fields as well is if something is conditionally visible, it is only required if it is visible to the recipient of the engagement. So feel free to make, you know, children information mandatory here on the form. If you have it as conditionally visible, it's only required if it applies to them, which is very nice. If you do have any other questions about conditional visibility, because it can get more complex than just that, there's a lot you can do with it. Please don't hesitate to let us know. The support team is always available in the live chat at the bottom right-hand corner of the Precise FP website. We are there human beings from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday. You can also locate our help guides in that same chat window under the Help tab. And this does include a conditional visibility help guide that we have on establishing essentially what we just kind of talked through today. All right. So don't be a stranger if you have any more questions or if you get stuck at some point, feel free to pop into chat, send us a screenshot, let us know where you're getting stuck, and we will absolutely help you out. I hope this was helpful, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.